Good afternoon and welcome to the Careers for the Environment. This is an initiative that takes part of World Environment Day, which is today. And my name is Dominic Johnson. I'm the Group Manager of Planning and Environment at the City of Ryde Council. So first of all, I wanted to welcome you all here and then explain to you what the intention of today is about. A number of you are studying or at the beginning and the end of your studies. And perhaps wondering what you'd like to do in terms of a career, what job you'd like to have at the end of all of this hard work. Well, today you're going to hear from a number of people who have walked in your shoes, who have studied, and have ended up in a career that involves the environment. I'm one of those people. As I mentioned, I'm the Group Manager of Planning and Environment at the City of Ryde. What that means is that part of my role is to make sure that all the environmental planning and projects that occur in the City of Ryde occur in a way that the community wants, they occur to a particular price point and deliver the environmental outcomes that people are looking for. You're also going to hear from a wide range of people who work in the public sector and the private sector, some who work at the City of Ryde, to give you some ideas about where you might take your careers. All I can say personally is my journey has been a very satisfying one. Having studied and got a master's degree in environmental management here at Macquarie University, I've also worked for the Department of Foreign Affairs in managing environmental projects and policy. I've worked as a consultant in coastal science. I've worked in councils, in catchment, and I've also worked in alternative waste management. So one of the great things about working in the environmental discipline is that it is incredibly varied. And if you think about it, it covers three broad areas. You can go into not-for-profits or NGOs and work in that whole advocacy area. You can go and work for a corporate, mining, industry, and help make their environmental impacts less. Or you can go into the public sector and work for Department of Foreign Affairs or Department of Climate and Water Conservation in that policy setting and project delivery area. So it's pretty broad. You could travel anywhere in the world with it. I can't commend it to you highly enough. That's enough for me. As I say, I wanted to welcome you. I also wanted to recognise that this is a joint initiative of both the City of Ryde and Macquarie University. And having said all of that, I'm now going to pass over to Nick Chapman, who's going to MC today, run you through all the speakers, and you'll be provided an opportunity to ask some questions at the end if you want to get some specific understanding about a career that might interest you. So welcome and thanks for coming.
Hello everybody, welcome to our lunchtime session about careers for the environment, and we're in a bit of a public venue here. There's a bit of a competition around in terms of sound and light, so we might have to sort of make the proceedings a little less formal, I think, but we'll see how we go, okay? My name's Nick Chapman. I'm the MC for today, which is very nice. I actually work at a competing university. I work at UTS, where I am in the School of the Built Environment, and amongst other things I teach sustainable urban development. Now, we've got some really interesting speakers today, and I've actually had the good fortune to work with almost all of them on various projects over the years. And let me tell you, they're a pretty smart bunch of people. Now, we've asked them to talk for about 10 minutes each about their experience of working in the environment, and also we've asked them to give you a few tips, because obviously you're here because you are interested or perhaps already have a job in the environment and sustainability field. So listen closely to those tips, because we've got about 180 years worth of experience here today for you. And then I heard about Richie, and that tipped us over to about 200 years. Okay, we'd also like to hear from you, all right, which you needn't panic about it, we've got a microphone. We're interested in you asking any questions of the speakers, and we're going to have a bit of a question and answer session, I think, at the end, and I'll invite all the speakers to come back up and sit where Dominic and Richie are and field some of your questions. But before that, we're going to have a mic just going around the room in a couple of minutes. And what I'd love to hear from is a couple of you describe why it is that you're interested in working in the environment, because that might help our speakers in terms of what they're going to say, okay? Fortunately, because we've got a PA, we don't have to sort of shout at each other. Okay, that's enough in terms of opening remarks. I'd now like to hand over to Professor Richie Howard from Macquarie University to say a few words. Richie.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks for all turning up today. My role is simply to welcome you all to Macquarie University, but you've all been here. Some of you are quite familiar, and you seem to have been here for a long time. So it seems superfluous to welcome some of you, but I can see some younger faces who haven't been here for a long time. So welcome on behalf of the university to a discussion of pursuing careers in environment, the interface between learning and career. We hope there is some relationship, and my colleagues here today are here to demonstrate that there is life after study and that there are opportunities to really look at the way that your studies can be designed to take you forward. The reason I'm invited is that I'm here as the director of what's called the Macquarie Ride Futures Partnership, which is a commitment to a collaboration over the next 20 years between the council and the university. And that collaboration encompasses the entire scope of research capacity across the university. But of course, the City of Ryde's commitment to creating a city of environmental sensitivity is front and centre in that concern. And we're pursuing those outcomes through collaborative research, through the participation and community and engagement program, in a whole range of activities across the curriculum. So we're here interested in looking at what we might think of as green jobs, as green futures, and of harnessing the experience of working in environment and sustainability towards your outcomes. It's an opportunity for you to meet a bunch of people with connections to the university, to meet colleagues and potential colleagues. You are the network of people who are the next generation of people doing this work. So I guess my message is that you need to take these opportunities to network as if it matters, to do your learning as if it matters, and to harness these opportunities as if the future matters. And to take the opportunity to ask these people, to ask your university staff, to ask your peers and colleagues, how do you make a difference? So enjoy the seminar, listen to the wise words, listen as if that matters as well. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Richie. My job is to try and keep the session on time. So I'm not going to be talking about my career, but I would like to share with you just one story, okay? I was born in the UK, near London, and I went to university at a place called Bradford in Yorkshire. And those of you who know England know that Yorkshire is way up north. And it's a bit of a tired, battered old city, and it really enjoyed its heyday during the Industrial Revolution and kind of during the Victorian era, and it's been scrandally declining for the last century. The reason I went there to university was because Bradford University was the only university in England that offered a degree with the word environment in it. So this was about 30 years ago, right? So off I trotted and did my environmental science degree. And my girlfriend was doing peace studies. And we thought we were pretty cool. But there was a hitch. We were wondering what sort of jobs we were going to get when we graduated. Because it was pretty tough in England in the early 80s. For two reasons. Firstly, if you looked in the newspapers under E, there was no mention of the word environment. There was economics, yeah. There was estate management, but nothing about the environment. So that was the first problem. The second problem was, this was England in 1982. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister. The place was going through huge political and social upheaval, and there were more unemployed graduates in England than there had ever been before. So I had a double whammy. I had a degree that nobody had heard of, and I was competing with more unemployed graduates than there had ever been in England before. So, what I ended up doing is I started a theatre company, believe it or not, and I spent 7 years working in professional theatre, and then we came on tour to Australia, and I loved it here, and I thought, I want to come back. And I managed to come back, and that was my opportunity to go and work in the environment field, which is what I was passionate about. And some people in South Australia were looking for somebody to work on the River Murray, and I think they must have been desperate because they offered the job to me. And that was the start of my career here in the environment 20 years ago. Now, today it's a very different story. You open the newspaper on a Saturday. Sorry, you can tell my age. I still look for jobs in the newspaper. No, you click on the relevant sites on the web and you see plenty of jobs with the word environment and sustainability in them. So that's a good thing for you guys. But what we also know is that there's a lot of competition for those jobs, particularly for the good ones. And so I guess my message to you, and it's a pretty obvious thing, is that when you're starting a career in a field, obviously you can't expect to get a really good job straight up. You have to work at it for a while. And that was certainly my experience, and from my knowledge of the speakers who will be talking to you today and sharing their experiences, I expect that they can also relate to some of what I've said. But there's no doubt in my mind that the environment is a growth industry, and it's really because it's a matter of our common survival. And I wanted to show you these slides, but of course there's lots of daylight here, so I'm sorry if they're not very clear. But anyway, the first slide, which is taken from the Herald, shows how much the population growth has increased in the last 50 years. Next slide, back up. And the grey blobs are Sydney's population growth, and it's gone from 1.6 million to 4.6 million. So Sydney's population has almost trebled in 50 years, 60 years. And the global population, which is the red dots, has gone from 2.5 billion to 7 billion. And these are pretty scary numbers, considering we already consume far more resources than the world can sustainably provide. So, we're borrowing from the future. Next slide. This is one of my favourite images. And when I first looked at it, I thought that was Tony Abbott in the cooking pot. But it's not, it's us. And there we are, hum-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum, slowly warming up. And we now know that there's plenty of scientific evidence about climate change and global warming. And this report that I'm quoting from is from Professor Tim Flannery, who has an association with Macquarie University. I think he still does, Richie? Yep. And he's the Climate Change Commissioner for the federal government, and there are some pretty dire predictions in his report about the impacts of global warming on Australia. And this is what we can expect by 2050. Now, I probably won't be around then, but many of you will be. There'll be another 2 billion people living on the planet. And remember, most of this growth will be in the developing countries, where people can only dream of the lifestyle that we here in Australia take for granted. Probably most significantly is that 70% of the world's population will be living in cities. So we've got a challenge on our hands. And the costs of that growth could be very significant indeed. And the impacts, economically, socially, and environmentally, could be quite unimaginable, almost out of this world. So, who's going to help make this huge adjustment? And that's where people like you come in. Now, I'm sorry, you can't see this very clearly, but it's taken from a report by one of the leading sustainability economists in Sydney, who happens to be somebody who talks to my students a couple of times a year. And he was commissioned by the Organisation of Economic Cooperation and Development, so these are pretty heavy-hitting economists, to look at green jobs growth in a number of different countries in various parts of the world. And there's two important pieces of good news for us, I think. The first is that green skills are now being recognised by forward-thinking employers as being really important. Green skills are considered by employers as being one of the top 3 skills that they're looking for in their workforce. So that means knowing about green certification and standards, knowing how to manage and reduce waste, knowing the latest and best ways of reducing energy consumption. Why are they interested in this? Because costs go down, overheads go down, and profits go up. So this is sustainable economics. The second graph to the right is comparing Australia with 6 other countries. And Australia is the leader in identifying the need for these green skills. We're actually the leader, according to this OECD report, in comparison to 5 other countries around the world. So, I guess to conclude, I think that you guys are in the right country and at the right time to ride this wave of new, exciting employment opportunities and make the world a more sustainable place.